Oh, you can...
Golgo 13. Top secret episode. It's a pretty damn good game, but to really appreciate this game, you really have to know who the character is and just what he's all about, which I hope you're getting the picture right now. And for an NES game, it's pretty surprising to say the least. Not as far as gameplay goes, but just content-wise, and what they were able to get away with. So hey, why don't we talk about Golgo 13? To put it in simple terms, Golgo 13, or Duke Togo, is an international killer for hire. Once he takes a job, he won't give up until the job is done. He's worked for the CIA, the KGB, and anyone else who can pay his fee. I'd say he's a lot like James Bond if James Bond said, screw MI6 and just did whatever the hell he wanted to. Hell, if Duke is coming after you, you might as well just give up. Golgo 13 was created as a manga back in 1968 for Big Comic magazine, and it would stay that way until 2015. It was the longest running manga in publication, and with anything running that long, there's bound to be more of it in other mediums. In the 1970s, there were not one, but two live-action adaptations of Golgo 13. And about a decade later, Golgo 13 would finally receive an anime adaptation in the form of the film Golgo 13: The Professional. In its own right, it's a decent film, but man, can I just point out that there's like 3 sex scenes in the first 20 minutes? Oh man, Duke looks like he's just having the best time. Then there was another anime in the 90s, and then there was a full-on anime series in the late 2000s. But before all those, there were the video games. There's only a few of them, but I'm mainly going to focus on the first NES game that actually made it to North America, Top Secret Episode. So the Top Secret Mission is a really cool game in concept, and you're not really going to find anything else like it on the console, so let's get into it. Top Secret Episode starts off with a helicopter exploding over New York City for the purposes of framing Golgo 13. Mainly doing this by finding a bullet from a customized M16, which is Duke's weapon of choice. And from then on, it's all about clearing your name and something about a bioweapon and a vaccine for it? I don't know, man. Not to mention that the people who set you up are the remnants of a Nazi regime, but because of censoring, they're just called the Drek Empire. And speaking of censoring, this game got away with a lot, but more on that later. As you can probably tell by the footage that I've been using, you can see that Top Secret Episode has a pretty good variety of gameplay when it comes to the different stages of the game. The game definitely likes to use some of these modes more than others, that's for sure, but for the most part, these modes are pretty varied throughout the course of the game. The game starts out with Duke hitting the streets of Berlin trying to find an agent named Condor to gather intel about the bioweapon vaccine thingy. And right from the get-go, you've got to deal with some pretty stiff controls, but that's mostly because of your gun. When you fire your gun, you're completely stuck in place. So instead, I recommend his flying jump kick, which allows you to move, but also maneuver easily. Well, as easily as you can press a button in the direction you're walking in, jumping, and then immediately attacking afterwards. In the side-scrolling sections, you'll sometimes be ambushed by a gun-wielding assailant, which will then put you in the first-person mode to shoot up some enemies. And this is honestly a nice change of pace, but damn, these sections get hard later on. What makes this game so difficult, though, is your health. You initially start out at 200, but there aren't any medkits or health items to be seen. The only way you can retrieve your health is by killing enemies. It's like Duke thrives literally from kill to kill. And this is totally fine in the beginning because the enemies are relatively easy to dispatch, but it just becomes a chore when you have to farm for health on tougher enemies. And the same goes for ammo as well. At the end of the level, you end up at a hotel with Cherry Grace, who debriefed you at the beginning of the game. And it's not hard to see where this is going. Holy crap, that was way more than I was expecting for an NES game. I mean, Japan normally doesn't care about censorship, but Nintendo of America did. And then doing even more research, I found out that they did censor this. 8-bit full frontal nudity, man. How the hell did this game get localized? I mean, don't get me wrong, this is totally in line with the source material, but it's just surprising because Nintendo was notoriously strict about their content guidelines. And well, it's just surprising to see that this would get by them. It's insane. But continuing on with the game, it introduces a new gameplay section with a helicopter that plays exactly like a horizontal shoot-'em-up, which is a lot of fun. After that, you're flung into the ocean with scuba gear and a spear gun, which is exactly like the other side-scrolling sections, except for the fact that your hitbox is definitely not right. And the first-person action scenes are really slow. After that, you'll go through a base, and then here comes the worst part about this game, the 3D maze. Now, I'm sure at the time these were pretty cool, but god, nothing confused the hell out of your internal compass like a fake 3D 2D maze. Now to be fair, the first one isn't awful. Shoot a guy here, blow up a wall there, and you'll be out in no time. But later on, there's a maze that easily takes at least another 2 hours to complete. Amazingly, I lucked out and was able to get to the end of the game in a relatively okay time, but dear god, it was an absolute hell. But I guess that's the case with a lot of old NES games. They weren't really all that long, but they normally had some sort of caveat that made it into the game that made it much more difficult, whether it be a certain section of the game or just the difficulty in general. And honestly, the rest of the game is more of the same, but that's definitely not a bad thing. I mean, yeah, there's some questionable hit detection, and yes, there are more 3D mazes that still take forever, but for whatever reason, I never felt like this game was getting old or boring. It only got more challenging and a pretty good deal more frustrating. As more of the story unfolds, more people sleep with you, then double-cross you, then there's clones, imposters, more hired assassins, and in one way or another they get killed to cover up the Drek Empire. Anyways, Duke finally makes it to the Drek base, where he finds not only the fake Golgo 13, but he also finds the very much so implied living brain of Hitler. No, I'm not kidding. And if you thought that maze was bad, oh man, you have no idea. So not only is this fight absurdly difficult, but if you end up dying, you're put back at the beginning of the chapter, which makes you run through a scuba diving stage in an equally difficult side-scrolling section. It's totally unfair. Not to say that this game was playing by the rules the whole time, but man, it just hurts when you realize you have to do that all over again just to get another shot at him. But once you finally defeat it, you're done. You get one final sniper shot at the brain, and it explodes. So I guess that means that Hitler has 2 death scenes on the NES. Man, how the hell did Bionic Commando get away with that? But yeah, thanks for stopping by. I've had a great time. Golgo 13's definitely got its problems, but it's still a great game. I would definitely recommend picking it up. If you want to see more videos, subscribe for more. If you like this video, like it, hit the little thumbs up thingy. If you want to see when I upload more videos, if you hit the little bell next to it, that'll get you there. Support me on Patreon, buy a shirt, do something. You don't have to, but it's there. It definitely helps for sure. Anyways, I will see you guys next time. Later.